up, come on, up, 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 up. There we go. We got a puppy. I was interested in more interested in himself than anything else. Hi, yes, hi. You want to help with the video? He's so fluffy. You want to help? It's going to be a video about space. Kind of. Oh, God. Okay. Let's try this. This, if I can get it into the camera without glaring, kind of looks like it came out of One Piece, doesn't it? It even has a little tiny treasure chest on the back. If you can see that. Not the best focus. But this video is going to be about Disney's Treasure Planet. It's actually one of my, Rainy. Stop doing that. You need to not do that. That's not good for you. But I don't care, Mama. As I was trying to say before the dog was trying to be dog, this video is going to be about Treasure Planet, which is the Disney movie that came out in 2002. It also came out, well, it came out in the same year as the original Lilo and Stitch movie. One of the few Disney movies, one of the few times Disney had two movies that was not a Pixar movie come out at the same time as another animation movie. They would sometimes do like live action movies come out like the same year as one of the animation movies or stuff like that, so that wasn't surprising. But yeah, just weird trivia there. And this is, of course, Treasure Planet is an adaptation of, based of the book by Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson, which came out in 1883. I love the dog. Yes, I do love you. Came out in 1883. Disney has also done two other variations of Treasure Island. One is, of course, the Disney film just called Treasure Island, which came out in 1950. I have not seen this variation of it, but I kind of think that they may have done pretty close to the book. And then the Muppet Treasure Island, which I have seen, which came out in 1996. You know, because Muppets. They've also done Muppet Christmas Carol and all this other stuff. But, which at some point I do want to review Muppet Christmas Carol because it's one of my favorite adaptations of it. But that has no bearing on this. The dog is trying to chew on his own foot. I love the dog. I love the dog. I love the dog. Also for this video, I dropped the coin. I saved it. Also for this video, I managed to find this, just a fake little flintlock. Rainy, what's that? It makes noise, Mommy. Yeah, it does make noise. And they brought back my cutlass that usually sits over in the corner and has been in the Peter Pan videos. Also, I have my little glowing orb planet thing here in the background, just going through so many different colors because there's like no color that I could sit on that would be, you know, appropriate for this movie. So just every color because space. Yeah. So, movie itself came out in 2002. The movie starts with kind of this epilogue of you know, this prologue type thing where it's like we hear about this great pirate, the notorious Captain Flint, who, you know, created this legacy of Treasure Planet. You know, it's a takeoff on the book, of course, because Captain Flint was, of course, the captain in the book. I have never actually read Treasure Island, and it has been a long time since I have seen any variation of it beyond Treasure Planet or Muppet Treasure Island, which I think I've only seen like twice, but it's funny. But it starts off as this big, you know, epic storyline about like there was this Captain Flint, who would raid these different merchant vessels and probably all types of other vessels and, you know, take their gold and then vanish, arrive from nowhere and vanish without a trace. And then we see that it's actually the storybook that is like a self-reading storybook that's being read by this little kid who's James Hawkins, Jim Hawkins, or James Pleiades Hawkins is his full name. And we see him, and his mother comes in, and she's like, you're supposed to be in bed an hour, supposed to be asleep an hour ago, blah, 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 blah. And they sit and they finish listening to the book. And, Jim's like, Mom, do you think that Treasure Planet is real? I know it's real. And she's, indulging him and such. And did you just sigh at me? I actually came up with another idea for a video that I'm going to do that might get posted. It'll be recorded quite a bit, or a little ways after this one is recorded. But I will be doing a video where I kind of do some comparisons between Treasure Planet and One Piece. Slight, just like comparisons between like these different characters and like these different characters in One Piece. I will be taking in some account whether or not, like in One Piece, whether or not they're pirates or admirals or revolutionaries or whatever the case may be. But for the most part, it's just going to be based on like their general character, their general disposition or characteristics, not necessarily based on their only on their status. And slight hint for that, Luffy is very much going to be compared to Jim Hawkins, except for the fact that Jim Hawkins is kind of smarter than Luffy, and less rubbery. But back to the movie. Sarah and Jim finish reading the book and everything, and she's tucking him into bed, and he's like, I know that Treasure Planet is real, and the dog is leaving. Scratch that, he's sniffing my sword. Hi. Now he's under the desk. Hi. Can I help you? Okay, I'm just gonna talk. The door's that way. And he's like, I don't know, I want to sniff under the shelf. Now he's behind me. What are you gonna do? You're on camera still, what are you gonna do? He's like, I'm gonna put myself in the corner, Mom. Because corner. Well, you can lay down if you want. Okay, well, I'll go back to this. You decide what you wish to do in the background. Lay down, go back out to the hallway, whatever you wish. And so she's kind of like, sure, yes, it's real. It's a real treasure. It's out there somewhere. And and then we cut to 12 years later, and the dog still has not made up his mind. He's circling. Oh, dog made up his mind. Hi. You can stay there, that's fine. Okay, we'll do dog check-ins throughout the video, I guess. But we cut to 12 years later, and we see Jim is now, I think he's supposed to be about 16, 17 range or so. And he's, flying around on this thing that's called a Solar Surfer. And he still believes in Treasure Planet. The Solar Surfers are kind of like a surfboard, but they have like this like solar-powered, I was going to say chart on it, but that's wrong. Solar-powered sail on it. And he, flies around on that, and he becomes a troublemaker and a rebel, unfortunately. And, he's just, very much acting out and everything. And he's a hoodlum in the eyes of a lot of people. And he's, running through on a Solar Surfer, doing a bunch of this, sky surfing and windsurfing. And he's, ends up, in a very restricted area where he's not supposed to be. And he ends up getting caught by these two RoboCops. They then, we get to see the inn where him and his mom live and what his mom owns and runs. It's called the Benbow Inn. I know that this is a reference to something in the books, but it's to the book. But as I said, it's been a long time since I've either watched any other variation of Treasure Island, or I don't think I ever even read the book. But we see his mother, and she's like the kind of the only one running this thing. I would assume there might be like some chefs in the kitchen. And some other helpers, but for the most part, it's just her. And like it's this inn and this restaurant, like so they've got a lot of people there, and she's running around and taking care of them. And we're introduced to this character, Dr. Delbert Doppler, who kind of looks like a dog. I know in the book that there is a character that this professor type character, who's not the brightest bulb, if I remember correctly. The only reason I say that is because I know that in Muppet Treasure Island he was played by Fozzie. That's the only reason I know that, or the only reason I think that. And he could be much smarter in the actual books. I just don't know. In the actual book, I just don't know. But he's kind of this canine-looking alien, and he's friends with Sarah and with Jim. And Sarah kind of vents some of her frustration about Jim. And the joke that I like about Dr. Doppler is that when she gives him his food, it's in like two bowls that look like a dog's water dish and a food bowl. And it's just adorable. I'm like, yeah, let's play into that stereotype there. I'm sure that's fine. But one of the things that we see with Delbert is that he is not the biggest fan of children. He's very smart. He's an astrophysicist. Or astronomer, astrophysicist type thing. And he's very smart, but he does lack a few people skills. And the RoboCops bring Jim home, and they're kind of reprimanding him, and it's like in front of all of these guests and everything. The guests and everything that are staying at the hotel, or staying at the inn, or just eating there, or whatever. And it's very humiliating for Sarah, and it's even humiliating, of course, for Jim. And he's violated parole and like all this stuff, so he's in a lot of trouble. The RoboCops leave. Delbert tries to help, but it doesn't really work. The RoboCops leave, and then Jim is just kind of basically to the point he's like in this depressed emo teenager mode where he's just like, what future am I supposed to have type thing. And we get to see it where, we cut to the end of that day and everything, and it's like pouring and raining outside. One of the things that I love about this, that they did with this, is, there are these, like how, people have like, of course, window, window shades and stuff like that. On this planet, what they have is, instead of it being just like cloth or like wooden panels or something like that you pull over the window or push over the window, it's like you can like rotate in like different scenery outside. Like we see it raining, and it's actually raining on the planet, and like Sarah just like rotates it to like a beach setting, and then she rotates it to like a pretty field of flowers and everything, just to like brighten up the mood in the room. And I'm just like, okay, I like that. I like that. That's good. And they, and she does that, and we have her and Delbert sitting and talking, and she's just like, I'm at the end of my rope. I got nothing else I can do. He's failing in school, and he's so smart, but he's failing, and he keeps getting in trouble, and it's just like all this stuff, and it's like, it does kind of get revealed that, Sarah's a single parent. Jim's father left years ago. Barely said goodbye, just up and left. In the Treasure Island book, I think it's just like Jim's father just like dies or something of natural causes. In this, he just left. But what ends up happening is, she's just so upset. She's just like, I just want my little boy back. I just want him to be, be like this little boy that I just remember and everything, just being so happy and everything. I just want to see him happy again. And Jim like ends up listening to this because he's like sitting on the roof of the inn, and he like hears his mom and Delbert talking, and then there's this little ship that crash lands. It's in space, so of course space. Ship that crash lands, and he runs out and he helps the guy out of the ship. The guy's name is Billy Bones, which is, reference to just like, Billy Bones and then the pirate that's, in Treasure Planet or Treasure Island and everything. They took a lot of, they just basically adapted certain things from the book, which I like. But, he helps him out and the guy's holding this chest. The guy kind of looks a little bit like a turtle alien to a degree. And Jim like starts helping him, or a salamander-like creature. And he helps get Billy Bones into the inn, and he's very injured and everything, and Sarah and Delbert are like trying to figure out what's going on, and Billy Bones like unlocks this chest and he gives this this parcel that's all wrapped and gives it to Jim, and he says, "Beware the cyborg," with his last breath, and then this is when this other ship shows up and it starts attacking. And Sarah and Jim and Delbert have to escape. They do manage to escape, but the Benbow Inn is unfortunately burned to the ground. And they're able to escape, thankfully, on Delbert's carriage, and they escape back to Delbert's house. Once they're there, Sarah and Jim and Delbert are just talking, and they're just like, what can we do? It's just like she's just so depressed now and everything. And Jim opens up the package, and inside is this golden sphere. And it's got like all these weird markings on it and everything. Like Delbert's like trying to look it over and he can't figure it out. And Jim just like starts like pressing the buttons, and like it's like a Rubik's Cube a little bit. It's just like puzzle thing, just starts like spinning it and spinning different parts of it, and it activates. And Dr. Delbert is just funny. He's like the comic relief for a good part of this. But like the sphere glows, and like out come all these like lights and everything, and it makes this hologram appear all around them, and it shows like all these different galaxies and planets and stars and everything, and like traveling through to the treasure planet that everybody said it always looked like, which is this this sphere with like these two intersecting rings going around it. And it's just like it can't be Treasure Planet, it can't be, and but it can, and it has to be. And like they decide, well, we have to go and we have to find it. And Sarah tries to talk both of them out of it. Jim is just like, but if we find it, then we can just rebuild the inn, and everything will be better, and everything will be so much better for us and such. And Delbert is like, Sarah, there are things worse than a few character building mutts in space. And she just like gives him this look of like, are you telling me this because it's the right thing, or because you really want to go? And he goes, well, I really, 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 really want to go, and it's the right thing. Delbert seems to have a fair amount of money. He does mention that he's using his savings to pay for this. But they go to the spaceport, the Montresor spaceport, which I love. It's basically like, we see this crescent moon, but it's not actually a moon, so it's like, that's no moon joke from, Star Wars, long before Star Wars became Disney property. So it's like crescent moon, but it appears to be completely like man-made or alien-made. And it's this spaceport. So they go to Montresor spaceport, and they find their way to their ship, the RLS Legacy, which is a reference to Robert Louis Stevenson Legacy. I do not know what the actual name of the ship is in the book. That might have been the same book, and he might have just stuck with that, but I don't know. Disney would have done that. And they end up coming, they get there, and they end up coming across, all these different types of aliens and everything that they interact with on the ship. And then we end up introducing the captain and the vice captain, or the first mate. The captain is Captain Amelia, who is a feline type alien, very feisty and feminine feline alien. And she is, like running all around the ship, like making sure that everything is like ship shape and everything. And then we meet her first mate, Mr. Arrow, who's this kind of very stone type alien. And very, strong and stone-willed, but the two of them seem to get along great. And they end up, they talk to Jim and the professor and everything. And Amelia just has some fun, like torturing the professor and like messing around with him and everything, just like teasing him and such. And it's so funny to watch that. And then they end up going to, they're about ready to blurt something out on the deck, and she ends up, she grabs his face and she goes, "Zip your howling screamer." And she, drags them into her quarters, and the four of them talk, and she explains, "Okay, here's the thing. I don't much care for this crew that you hired, I think." And she goes, um, she like does this whole, and I just love it because it's just like they have Emma Thompson playing her, and she just does a great thing with all these great words and this phrasing and everything. And I would assume, um, I would assume that they did a little bit of like just let her run with it, and then we'll see what else happens. And then also like translating some stuff from the books, from the book. But she's like, let me make this as monosyllabic as possible. I don't much care for this crew that you hired. There, to Mr. Arrow. How did I describe them, Arrow? I said something rather good this morning before coffee. And he was like, a ludicrous parcel of driveling galoots, ma'am. There you go, poetry. I love their back and forth. I love her back and forth with Delbert. And like, Jim gives her the map and everything, and she's like looking at Jim and says like, for the time that you were here, you'll either refer to me as Captain or Ma'am. And Jim is not used to authority figures. I mean, like, he'll show respect to his mom to a degree, but even that's kind of hard. He does like Delbert, but it's not his biggest, he's not super close with Delbert. And they get sent off, and she very much does not like like the crew and such, because I guess in this case it was they hire the captain and their first mate, and then like they hired the crew separately, I guess. Might have been like they hired her and her ship, and then the crew. I don't exactly know. But they go down to the galley in the kitchen, and they're introduced to John Silver, who is the ship's cook. He is also revealed to be a cyborg. With he has a cyborg eye. I don't remember if it's his left side or his right side that has more of the cyborg stuff. I think it's his right side. But he has a cyborg eye, and he has a cyborg arm that has like all these different features that he can like flip through and everything. Have like a regular hand, have like knives, have these like little claw things, all this stuff. Have like a vice grip type thing. And then he has, a cybernetic leg that kind of is, reminiscent of a peg leg. And, they go down there and they're introduced to him, and he like, just, goes about the kitchen making something, and then he feeds it to the two of them and like jokes with them and everything. And it's explained that he is going to be the Jim's supervisor, that Jim is going to be the cabin boy. And Jim is not happy about this. Neither is Silver. And they're also introduced to this little creature, this pink little blob-like creature that is called Morph, which is just a type of creature that can shapeshift into like all these different like small things. Like he shapeshifts into like a like a spoon at one point, or a straw, or into a miniature version of Jim, or just all this other stuff that he can shapeshift into. I don't know if it has to be something that he's seen before and then can shapeshift into, or if it's just he can imagine it, he can shapeshift into it. I don't know. But they go up on the deck and they watch as the ship takes off, which is already pretty cool because it's it's like if you took the pirate ships from like Pirates of the Caribbean and then like put them in space, and I love it. So it's like taking a bit of liberty with that. Because obviously there's no air in space and such, so there wouldn't be all this, you wouldn't be able to breathe without having, like a certain type of, atmosphere set up on your ship. They do cover some things. They do cover that they have like, synthetic gravity and such like that, so that way they can, stay, connected to the ship and everything. But they don't really explain anything about like the the breathing situation, because they're like out on deck and like up and down the sails and the riggings and everything, and they're it's none of them seem to be having any problems breathing. But it's amazing to watch. The ships are solar powered, so they open the sails and they power up the ship with the sails and everything, and then they're able to steer it and everything, which is very cool to watch. And they leave the spaceport, and then we see like these giant like space whales. Doctor Who reference for a space whale. And they get through, they interact with those, and then Jim basically gets sent to wash the deck. Jim is supposed to scrub the deck and everything, and Jim is not very trusting of Silver, because he got warned, beware the cyborg and everything, by Billy Bones, and he even tries to like ask Silver, hey, if this guy Bones, Billy Bones, and like Silver acts like, nope, never heard the name before. If any of you have seen the movie or read Treasure Island, or seen the Muppet Treasure Island, you kind of know where this is going. And if you haven't seen the movie before, why are you watching this? Go watch the movie and then come back and watch this. Because the movie itself is beautifully done. There's hand-drawn animation, there's computer-generated animation. It's beautifully connected. It's wonderful. But Jim almost gets into a fight with one of these other aliens that is kind of like this weird scorpion spider thingy that tries to attack him and everything. And then we get this big montage sequence with there's like 2 songs in this movie, but it's not really a musical because the characters aren't exactly singing. It is kind of told from like the character's point of view for the song. Like this song, I don't remember what it's called, but this song is like Jim's point of view. And it's like this montage of like him and Silver working together, him trying to prove himself, getting better and better. And we get it intercut with like flashbacks of like him as a kid, him with his dad, when his dad leaves, just all this stuff. And we see Silver there, and we keep just getting all these different cut back and forth things, and like them, and there's traveling, of course, during this time frame. Silver is it's revealed just before we get the sequence that Silver is actually the one that's actually in charge of this crew. It's his crew. He's actually the captain, and he got them hired on as a crew onto the ship because they were able to figure out that, okay, these are the people that have to have the map. And that they're going to wait until they get the treasure before they do anything against Amelia or Arrow or Doppler or Jim. And, we're just going to wait. You just leave the kid to me. I'll keep him so busy he won't have time to think. And, so we see this, and we see, Silver trying to teach Jim different things like, knot tying and stuff like that. And the thing, I understand to a degree still having like ropes for like the rigging and stuff like that to a degree, but, and I'll get to this in a minute, but at one point we have to deal with like lifelines where they have like everybody's like tied to like a lifeline, and then like the lifeline is tied to like these like pegs around the mast to hold everybody in place. So that way if they happen to fall, like if the ship, something happens with the ship or the ship tilts or something like that, during like a certain thing that happens, which I'll get to, that it prevents them from falling off as long as it's, tied and secured. But wouldn't something stronger than rope be better? Because rope is still flammable, rope is still easily cut. Wouldn't it be a wise decision to make it be something, a bit sturdier? Still is flexible, but a bit sturdier and, less hard to cut or burn. But that's just what I say. We see all these, great technology that they have and everything. It's like they couldn't figure out something better than rope. Whatever. But like Jim and Silver are like bonding in this time frame, and Jim is gaining some more confidence, and like they even go like I guess kind of like star surfing or something, because they get in the lifeboats, because the ship has lifeboats, but they're like solar powered lifeboats, and they get in one and like they go like surfing alongside of a star and kind of through a star, like a shooting star, a comet, and they're just like going through that and everything. which just looks fun. And then we have this moment where they're like sitting and talking and everything. And, this is kind of where, Jim says, my dad wasn't really the teaching kind. He was more the leaving and never coming back kind. And like we just, get these like bonding moments between Silver and Jim. And, Jim even asks, like, what happened with, like, Silver, why he has, half a body and everything, why he's, half cyborg. And he's like, well, I spent years chasing a dream, and this is some of the things that it costed me. And he's like, was it worth it? And he's like, I'll let you know when I find out. It's kind of stated that Silver has been searching, like, his entire life to try to find Flint's treasure. The question that I would have is, or some of the questions that I would have with this case, and this is like where it's like at some point when I do like the comparison between like Treasure Planet / Treasure Island and One Piece, I'll go over some of this there. But with this, we have it that, there's this treasure map, the orb, the sphere, and, Billy Bones had it. I would assume that either one of his ancestors was on Flint's crew and like somehow had it, or somehow he got a hold of it, whatever the case may be. And then, Silver has been searching and searching and searching with his crew and everything to try to find this, this sphere that can help them find their way to Treasure Planet. And yet, Bones had it. Silver found out that he had it, and Bones ended up giving it to Jim. Admittedly, I would assume that part of the reason that he gave it to Jim is A, plot progression, but B, Jim ran to help this guy out of his ship and even was willing to help drag the guy, make sure that the guy was okay and drag him into his own, place where he lived into the inn to try to help the guy, indicating that, okay, at the very least, Jim is a better person than, like, Silver in this case, than the cyborg. And, that's why, Billy Bones gave it to Jim. And trusted him with the treasure. Did not tell him exactly what it was, but he figured, okay, either the kid's going to be smart enough to figure this out, or at the very least, it may get held off from getting found by Silver from the cyborg for a while longer. But like, so Silver and Jim are talking, and then the ship starts shaking, and they run up, and they see that this star has started to go supernova. And it's like exploding and sending out these huge waves and everything, and debris and, comets and everything. Or meteors, or whatever you want to refer to them as, comets, asteroids, meteors, whatever. Giant chunks of planet, star that are just flying everywhere. And the planet, the star is exploding and everything, and they're all, everybody's running around the ship trying to steer them away from it, reeling up the sails, tying all their lifelines off and everything to make sure that they're all, connected to the ship. This is where they use rope, and I'm just like, why are you using rope for this? And they're all running around and everything. And Jim, or Jim's running around and everything, and he like saves Silver's life at one point because like Silver falls and like Jim saves him. And the rest of the crew is just doing what they're supposed to do. And the Mr. Arrow's even helping run around trying to get all the sails and everything where they need to be. And Delbert is like reading off on this chart thing or whatever, this radar thing to see what's going on. And then the star chart's devolving into a black hole, and it's going to suck them all in, but it's still sending out different flares. And he's like, well, there's going to be another one in this amount of time frame, and then there's going to be this big huge freaking one. And Captain Amelia just comes up with this idea. She's at the helm, and she's just like this big smile on her face, like, we're going to ride that last wave out of here. And like they lower the sails, and like they kind of almost get sucked into the black hole, and they get pushed back out by this huge explosion of this more of this solar wave that just like powers the ship away from it. But we also see that Mr. Arrow, at one of the points during this whole time frame, he fell, but his rope still held tight because like Jim had gone through and like checked to make sure every single rope was tied perfectly and knotted perfectly and securely and everything to make sure every single one was fine. And the rope goes, and they specifically show that the rope holds, and Arrow starts climbing his way back up. But Jim, or not Jim, Scrop, the red scorpion spider thingy, goes, and he, because he's angry at Mr. Arrow, because Mr. Arrow, like, put him in his place or whatever. And he, uses his claws to, like, cut the rope and send Mr. Arrow plummeting into the black hole. I do not know where this falls necessarily in regards to how accurate that is to what happens in either the book or like the Treasure Island movie. I have no idea. But so Mr. Arrow goes, and then like they're all, they survive the black hole, and they're all happy and everything, and they all made it through. And Amelia congratulates Jim, and then it's revealed that Mr. Arrow's dead. He's gone. And Scrub has his hat, and he gives his hat to Amelia, and Jim is just crushed by what happens, of course, because he's sad Mr. Arrow's dead, but he's also like, we get this moment where we cut to him and Silver later that night, and Silver and him are talking, and Jim is just like, he's angry about the fact that it was like, I thought for a minute that I could do something right, that I could do something, that I could have done something right, in regards to that. And Silver kind of talks him down a bit, and they end up, he's like, you're gonna have, you've got the makings of greatness in you and everything. And I think it's this quote that I have is set for like the end quote of this. But he's just, he's trying to cheer Jim up, and that, you're gonna be great one day, and that I hope that when that happens, I'll be there kind of catching some of that light coming off of you. And and like, Jim is just like kind of still distraught, but it's just like, Silver's like the closest thing. I mean, like, he's known Doppler, like he's known Delbert like his entire life probably. They never explain how like Delbert and his mother knew each other. Like, does he just like come to the inn so much because they have good food and he comes there a lot, and he's just like watched Jim grow up and become friends with Sarah? Is like he an investor in the inn? I have no idea. They never explain that. He's just an old family friend. And I'm sure that Delbert, tried to help with like stuff with Jim, like after Jim's dad left and everything. But they're not exceedingly close. But Silver is kind of like the closest thing to like a father figure that Jim has had in a long time. And Jim kind of just they end up basically hugging, Silver kind of ends up hugging Jim to like give him comfort and everything. And then Jim goes off to bed. And, Silver, you can see that Jim is like getting under Silver's skin, not intentionally in Jim's case, because he doesn't know that Silver's technically a bad guy. But there's that bond building. Silver sees stuff in Jim that he saw in himself. And the next morning, Morph tries to play with Jim, and and they end up getting down in the galley, and they end up finding out that like Silver is there, and he's basically telling Scroop that it was like, you're the one that killed Mr. Arrow. I told you we weren't going to do anything until we had the treasure in hand. Then we would kill them, not before. And Scroop basically says, Jim and Morph are like hiding inside of this barrel of like fruit, and like the rest of that crew, the rest of the fake crew are there, and Silver's there, and so Scrop basically like pulls out one of these fruits. They're called perps. I was like, I assume they're supposed to be like some form of like a plum or something like that. But we see like a lot of weird alien food throughout this movie, and it's just funny to watch. It was just like they just had fun making up different alien fruits. But he Scrop, whatever, accuses Silver of being soft on Jim, having a soft spot for Jim. And like he pokes the fruit to show that that's what he means, and Silver's just like, no, I'm just trying to keep him off our trail, just to keep him off our trail. If he thinks he can trust me, then we can do easier trying to get ourselves to the treasure. That's when they hear like Planet Ho, which I don't know if I've ever noticed that before, the amount of times that I've watched the movie. But, it's like instead of it's Land Ho, it's Planet Ho, which is just like, if it took me that long to figure that out when I was a kid, I have no idea. But like we hear them shouting that, like they all rush upstairs to go and see it, and we see Treasure Planet there, in the distance, revealed. They're coming up to it and everything. And what ends up happening is Jim, he's just like had this revelation of, okay, this guy that I thought I could trust is actually a bad guy, is actually going to kill, myself and the captain and Doppler or Delbert. And he's been lying to me this entire time, and they're the ones that killed Mr. Arrow. It's just like all of that sinking in at the same time, and he starts making his way up, and Silver ran back down into the galley to go and find his spyglass, and they meet, and they have this confrontation, and Jim ends up stabbing, I think it looked like a screwdriver or a knife or something like into Silver's leg to, hurt his cybernetic leg, because it makes it harder for him to walk. And he runs off and he grabs Amelia and he grabs Doppler, and they run into Amelia's office, and they get the map, and then they make their way through the ship, and Silver just basically tells the rest of the crew, we move now, instead of waiting. And I'll pull up the sword so I can eat around. And they start, this crew basically starts their mutiny, and one of the Rainy did not like that noise. I'm sorry. You're okay. Harry, you want to be on camera again? Rainy, you're on camera again. Rainy puppy. I'm sorry, I did not mean to scare you. You're a good baby. I have a sword. Hi. You want to come up on the bed again? Or come through there? Up. Okay. Riaz has bed puppy again. Rainy, I want the window. He's like, Mommy, I want the window now. Can I have the window? Riaz has been talking long enough. Yeah, no dog. You can put your head there, that's fine, but I ain't opening the shade yet, because it makes it hard to watch. It makes it hard to record. He's so cute. He's cute. Okay, back to the video. So they start their mutiny on the ship, but one of the attachments on a Silver's arm is actually a cutlass type sword, which is kind of cool. I just kind of always thought that was kind of cool. But Amelia and Jim and Delbert are able to escape through the belly of the ship, and they're able to get down to the and they have the map with them, and they're able to get down to the hull where the lifeboats are, and they take one of the lifeboats. Unfortunately, Morph had been following them, and he grabbed the map, the puzzle map, grabbed that, and he hit it, jumped into a pile of rope. Jim reached in, grabs the map, and then they run off, and they're able to escape. Big kind of action sequence going on here that I'm not very good at describing. They are able to escape. Unfortunately, Amelia does get injured in the process, and they're able to make it down to crash land onto the surface of Treasure Planet. As I said, Amelia gets badly injured and needs to find a place to rest, so Jim goes off to try to find a place to rest, and he ends up coming across this very odd robot. His name's Ben, bioelectronic navigator. He's very whimsical, and he says that he's been driven mad by being on the planet for 100 years of isolation. Yeah, been on the planet for about 100 years, yeah. Which is kind of about how long ago the Captain Flint legend started, the Treasure Planet Planet legend started. And that he claims to have no memory due to his memory chip being removed. He does end up being able to provide them with a place where they can stay, and they get Delbert and Amelia there. And Delbert's trying to look over Amelia's injury, and there's this huge argument thing that happens between Delbert and Jim about what they should do and everything. And like Jim pulls out the map, or pulled out the map a little bit ago, and the map morphed, and that the map is still on the ship. So they have to find a way to get back to the ship because, well, they need the map, and like Silver's crew comes down, and like they still think that Jim has the map, and they try to use that to Jim's to their advantage. But what ends up happening is Jim and Silver kind of have this like a parlay moment. And they they talk and everything, and Jim or Silver kind of ends up just having just kind of like snapping at Jim and snapping at Morph and all this stuff, and just it's very indicating of the fact that Silver is not very happy at the moment. He lost the map. He doesn't, he likes Jim and he doesn't want to hurt Jim, but he will to get what he wants at the moment, or at least he's giving off that vibe. And Jim still pretends that he has the map and everything. And we have it that Amelia and Doppler keep talking, and Amelia is kind of delusional a little bit at this point in time. And Delbert basically ends up doing this thing of it's a joke on the whole Star Trek thing of damn it, Jim, I'm a doctor, not a bricklayer type thing, with Bones to Kirk. And it's basically Delbert going, damn it, Jim, I'm an astrophysicist. I'm not a doctor, but I'm a doctor, but I'm not that kind of doctor. I'm not the kind of doctor that can help you, but just the kind of doctor that sits there and you're useless type thing. And it's just funny watching that. And like, Amelia just like keeps like looks at him and is like, you have beautiful eyes, to the doctor, and he's like, she's lost it. And it's just like just funny there. And like Ben at one point even calls them like a couple, and he's like, no, we're not a couple. And Jim and Ben and Morph end up actually, they make their way through this planet, and like Ben keeps having these moments where he keeps like saying something about like mentioning Flint, mentioning the treasure, mentioning stuff like that. Makes him mention like, oh, the treasure is buried in like the centroid of the mechanism, and like a big door opening and closing and opening and closing and all this other stuff. And like he remembers, well, I remember Captain Flint, nice, interesting guy. Suffered from mood swings personally, I think. Just like all this stuff, and just like, so it's like you knew Captain Flint, and Ben explains that, oh, there's this giant, this is basically like a giant artificial, planet, and that there's like all this miles and miles of like, technology and everything that runs through this planet, and they escape through that, and they steal the longboat that Silver and his crew had used to get back down to the planet. And they go back to the ship, and Ben goes to try to, Ben is very easily distracted. He goes to try to like disarm the laser cannons, because there are laser cannons, because why wouldn't there be laser cannons? They actually have a practical purpose. They're used to like shoot down like meteorites or asteroids or stuff like that that are like heading for the ship, shoot down debris or stuff like that that's heading for the ship, so it won't cause damage or as much damage. So they have a purpose, but are like trying to he's trying to dismantle those, and Jim is trying to make his way back to where the treasure, where the map is, and him and Morph end up running into Scrop, whatever, keeping guard, and there ends up being this huge kerfuffle and everything, and like Jim ends up having to face off against Scrop, and he finds out that during all this time we see Ben like cutting back and forth. Ben's trying to disable the he disables the anti-gravity, so they start floating and the lights go on and off, and like Ben's just like working to try to get all that stuff taken care of. And Jim almost flies off the ship, but he doesn't. He gets back on, and then he actually ends up sending Scrop flying into space, kind of the same way that happened with Mr. Arrow. And so he's done. And then, they're able to, disconnect the laser cannons, and, Ben had finally done it, but he's kind of like singed and everything, and they make their way back down to the planet and back to like Ben's home. And Ben, it's revealed that, oh, Silver, while Jim was gone, Silver and the rest of the crew snuck into the base, and have Amelia and Doppler and Delbert, they're tied up and everything, and they force Jim to open the map, and Jim just like, well, Silver tries to get the map to work and it doesn't work, and then Jim, Jim makes it work and like activates it, and like out of it pops this beam of light that starts leading them to somewhere on the planet. Jim says that either I come with you, if you want the map, I come with you. And they take all of them, and they have like been there too, and they make their way, they follow this, glowing line across the planet to this cliff. And like the beam just stops in midair. And they're just like, okay, where's the treasure? This is not what we were promised. And like it just stops in midair, and like they're trying to figure out what's going on, and like they're kind of trying to attack Jim, and Jim makes the comment, or like Jim gets knocked down on part of this cliff, not off the cliff, but just onto like the top of the cliff, and he finds this like dent in the ground, and he cleans it off, and he shoves the orb into the sphere into the dent into the ground that would hold the sphere, and it activates, and up rises this this green orb that has like all these like little tiny like scale model replicas of like the different planets and stars and stuff, and this door opens. It's like this big like space door opens, and I'm just like, okay, yeah, that's cool. It opens and it shows like like a galaxy that's on or like a nebula that's like on the other end of the galaxy, and like all this other stuff, and like they start poking the different spots on the map on the chart, and it keeps opening on all these other doors and everything, all these other planets and everything. And this is where it's like Jim figures out that, okay, so all these other, this is how Flint would appear out of nowhere and then vanish without a trace. You would use this door to leave from Treasure Planet, use that as his base, leave from Treasure Planet, go to these places, go to these places where there's like merchant vessels or trade ships or whatever, even just like rich people ships, take all the money, and then vanish without a trace, come back here and dump all of his spoils here. And so they're like, okay, well then how are we supposed to get to it? He was like, well, and like so it has to be and Jim's like remembering like what Ben said, because Ben said with him, it's like it's buried in the center of the mechanism, so it's like in the middle of this planet, and they all try to dig through the planet, and that doesn't work. And yeah, that doesn't work. And they end up, Jim is like, well then, well then, how do we get there? And he's like, you just have to open the right door. And he pokes the planet that looks like a treasure planet, treasure planet with the rings around it, and they poke that, and it opens to this door that has all of this room full of treasure. And it's not just a room full of treasure; it's like the center of this planet with like this giant orb in the center, with like little like holes around it, where like there's like these, I'm assuming these are supposed to be like gravity stabilizer beams that keep firing through the thing, because all around this thing is just treasure, and like treasure and gold and jewels and treasure chest, like all this stuff there is just like piled there all around this sphere. And they make their way inside, and all the crew just starts basking in the gold and everything. And Silver like just walks over to the gold, and he just like runs his fingers through. He's like, after a lifetime of searching, I can touch it. And Jim basically decided, he was like, okay, I kind of don't care about the treasure at this point in time. I just want to get us off this ship so me and Doppler and Amelia don't die, and so I can get back to my mom, because I just want to go back to my mom at this point in time. And they make their way over to this like ship that's sitting there that is like the wreckage of like Flint's ship. And they get onto the ship, and they see Flint's corpse. His skeleton is sitting there. And so it's like, okay, I'm going to die among all of my treasure. Okay. And he's, Ben recognizes him, and he's like, there was something Flint you know, he wanted, you know, there was something he didn't want anybody to know, and I just like I can't remember what that was, and you know, I just don't remember what it was that nobody was supposed to know. And Jim walks over and he sees clasped in Flint's hand is what looks like the back of Ben's head, the rest of his memory chip, and you know, Jim rips off the fingers and pulls out the memory chip and reattaches it to Ben, and Ben like kind of does a slight reboot and gets his memories back. And like one of the things that they showed us is that originally I think his eyes were like yellow normally when we first meet him, and then it shifts, and then now they're like blue. But he's like remembering. Oh yeah, oh yeah, I remember everything up to when Captain Flint pulled up my memory circuit to prevent me from telling anybody about the booby trap. And then, you know, explosion happens. Speaking of which, because when they first walked in, you know how there's like, you know, like laser security things that you can go through. It's like laser sensors. You know, it's like you trigger this and like you trip this wire or whatever and you'll activate something. And like there was like one of those on the floor that was like very unnoticeable for people walking in. I would assume that like Flint and his crew probably had like the you know, the passcode for this or something like that, or they knew always to deactivate it before they came inside, or before they left, you know, reactivated it, whatever the case may be. Or like maybe there was like a cancellation code or something like that that they could use, because this planet seems to have been extremely old, made by like an ancient civilization. And you know, I kind of think of it like an ancient civilization of like robots that built this planet. And then you know, Flint found it because it has like all this like you know, magic door technology. And you know, he like decides it's okay, well I can use all this to my advantage and I can go after and get, you know, all this treasure and bring it back here. And they can't find me because it's like it's at the farthest reaches of the galaxy. And you know, they can't find me because it's like we vanish without a trace and we show up and they don't know where we came from. And you know, so the planet kind of starts shaking, and like the platforms where like all the gold is start like coming apart, and the gold starts falling away, and like the bunch of the crew falls in, but a bunch of them also escape. And Jim is just working on trying to get this ship that Flint had up and going, and he tells Ben to go back and get Amelia and the doctor, Amelia and Doppler, and get them to safety. You'll get back to the Legacy and then bring the ship here and, you know, get me. But you know, if something happened after so many minutes, don't wait for me, just go. And you know, Ben goes off and does that, and we cut back to Amelia and Doppler, and they're sitting in the one of the longboats, still tied up with one of the other pirates. And Doppler and Amelia just kind of have this nice moment where they're talking, like whispering to each other. And Delbert, like they're tied, and Delbert is just like so useless. And I apparently have very thin wrists. And he like pops, because it's like one of the ropes came off, and he like pops it back behind his wrist, pops it back behind his you know, back, and he like makes fun of the pirate, and the pirate comes over and like is ready to like pummel Doppler, and Doppler like had like pickpocketed, I guess, the guy's rifle or whatever, like hold it up to his stomach. Yes, is this yours? And like, you know, so he, you know, they tie him up, and then, you know, they go and they get the Legacy with the longboat, and they bring the Legacy back down, and like Ben showed up, I'm assuming in that same time frame, and like helped them get like the Legacy up and going, because Ben is now like working, you know, functioning at his, you know, full power at this point in time again. And they, you know, he's, you know, Ben, you know, Jim is still trying to get, you know, Silver's ship like hot wired and running. And they you know, Silver shows up on the ship, and he's like, you know, there's still lots of treasure on the ship, because it's like, hey, if you're gonna steal the ship, you might as well leave the treasure on it. And they're gonna, you know, Silver tries to convince Jim to, you know, let him come with him and everything, and like Jim, you know, threatens him, you know, points the cutlass at him, puts one of the random cutlasses that's there at him. And there ends up being this whole like shaking and everything that's going on with like the planet like deteriorating and everything getting ready to explode. And Jim falls off the ship, and he's like gonna fall down into the ravine and everything, and like Silver has, you know, he's like holding on to the ship and like trying to reach for Jim, and like, so it's like there's this moment where he has to choose between either the ship or Jim. And you know, he's like I'm such an idiot, and he saves Jim. And then like they're able to escape out of the building, or escape out of the, you know, exploding part of the planet. But the rest of the planet is still going to explode anyway. Even if you're on the surface, the rest of the planet is still going to explode. The Legacy is there, and like they have a bunch of the pirates like tied up in the basement now, or tied up in the hole now. And you know, Amelia is like trying to direct Delbert on how to fly the ship. So she's like backseat piloting. And you know, they're just having like this, I know, I can drive, because he's like trying to steer the ship and everything. I know, will you just let me drive? So they're acting like the old married couple type thing. And they're you know, Amelia's still injured at this point in time, of course, and like Ben's helping with the navigation and everything. And you know, they're like, okay, so we have to get off this planet, but we don't have enough time to be able to escape the planet. And like they're trying to like flying away a bit, and I was like, but we don't have enough time to be able to escape this planet, and you know, get far enough away before the planet explodes, but without getting, you know, without still being in the blast radius. And Jim's like, okay, well, we need to go back, and we need to get back into that, go through that door again, the door that's opened up in this like raging inferno. No, we're gonna open a different door. And he like grabs like this scrap metal and everything that's there, and like the scrap part of an engine, and he like builds himself this like solar surfer real quick, and like Silver even helps with like welding it together real quick, because one of his features is a blowtorch, because of course it is, like a laser blowtorch type thing. And you know, Jim hops on this, you know, skiff type thing that he made, and he's like, you know, his solar surfer type thing, because he's really good at those. And he's like, you know, jetting towards, you know, the map, and you know, the door map and everything, so that way he can, you know, activate whichever door to get them away from this, because any door basically would be like a lot safer than where they're at, than the door that it's open to now. And they're, you know, he's racing toward that, like the ship, you know, turned around, and like they're, you know, headed that way and everything. And you know, the surfboard kind of, the surfboard kind of starts malfunctioning, and like Jim has to, like, he's like falling into like one of the ravines, and he has to like reactivate it by like running the ship along, like running the engine along the side of the wall, and like reactivating it, and he's able to like beat the ship there, and he's able to, you know, pokes the door, you know, pokes the spot on the door that opens up on Montressor, so like the spaceport, Crescent spaceport, and Crescent spaceport. I can talk. And they get through that, and like just in time, and they're able to escape the explosion, because like, you know, the door opens, and they're able to get through the door just in time. And you know, we see the explosion behind them in the door as it closes, because it, you know, destroys the source of the door, so they can't go back. And like, you know, they're all happy and everything, and like Amelia and, you know, and Doppler hug, and you know, Jim, you know, Ben hugs Jim and everything, and they're just very happy. And Jim finds Silver down trying to, you know, make an escape, you know, so that we can try to sneak off the ship, you know, taking the remaining logbook, so he doesn't have to, you know, get in trouble, you know, face punishment for the mutiny. And you know, Jim, you know, Jim kind of lets him go, and Silver, you know, Silver and Jim have this like last moment with each other, and like Silver tells Morph to stay with Jim, and like keep an eye on him and everything. And Jim, and the dog's trying to look out the window right now. Let's look at the dog. It's a lot of glare. Sorry. But you know, they're trying to, you know, Jim and, you know, Silver are saying goodbye, and you know, Silver has, you know, Morph stay with Jim, and Silver throws Jim a bunch of this, you know, some you know, some gold coins and some like jewels and such, and he says, that's for your mom, to help rebuild that inn of hers, you know, that I burned down at the beginning of this adventure of ours. Yeah. And then we cut to, you know, Silver flies off on the remaining longboat that they have, solar longboat, and he escapes. And Jim, and then we cut to like Jim's mother on Montressor at the spaceport, and like, you know, so they're reunited. And then we cut to like a couple of months later, so, and like they've rebuilt the inn, and it's bigger and better than ever. And like we see a bunch of the people that have been like the guests before are like there helping with stuff, and Morph turns into a pair of scissors to help cut the ribbon to open the inn, and Ben is there helping and everything, and we see Amelia and Doppler, and they have 4 children, 3 girls, 1 boy, that are adorable. So this is like trivia, but I'll put it in here because it makes sense. Doppler and Amelia are actually part of the same species of aliens, as is stated by the Disney creators. That they're part of the same species of aliens, where the males look like dogs and the females are feline. So the 3 daughters that they have are female, and then the son is dog type. And they're adorable. And they're just so cute. And they're having this big party at the end, and just everybody's so happy. And we get this other song. I don't remember if it's just a reprise of the song from earlier, or if it's a newer song, or if it's a different song off the top of my head. There's not really that many songs with Treasure Planet. They have a good soundtrack though, in regards to the background music and stuff like that. But and we cut to Jim shows up with the RoboCops again, but he's actually in this Space Academy type uniform and everything, and he got into the academy on Amelia's recommendation and everything, so now he gets to become now he gets to work towards becoming something even better, becoming this captain, becoming this adventurer, probably working alongside Amelia for quite a while, I would assume. And we have all 4 of the little kids there, the little babies, and they're adorable. And Ben is there and he's happy, and Sarah and Jim are dancing and having fun, and it just everybody's just happy and everything. And Jim is kind of thinking that maybe he thinks that it would be nice if Silver was here to be here with us, but that's not happening because he's an outlaw. That's where the movie ends. For the cast of the movie, we have Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Jim Hawkins. We have Brian Murray as John Silver. We have David Hyde Pierce as Dr. Delbert Doppler. DDD. David Hyde Pierce is, of course, from Frasier, where he plays Kelsey Grammer's character's brother. Then we have Laurie Metcalf as Sarah Hawkins. Laurie Metcalf is also the woman that voices Andy's mom in Toy Story. She's also, she was on Roseanne for a long time, and then she's also in Big Bang Theory as Sheldon's mom. I don't know which one of them would have been harder to raise, but I'm leaning towards Sheldon. Out of Andy and Jim and Sheldon, I would lean towards Sheldon. But then we have Emma Thompson as Captain Amelia, who is, of course, Professor Trelawney from the Harry Potter movie. She's also been in so many other things, a lot of Shakespeare things. This is the first animated movie she ever did. The second animated movie she did, she plays Queen Eleanor in Brave, which is the Pixar movie, of course, which at some point I will do a review about. Then we have Michael Wincott as Scrop. Don't really know too much about him. We have Martin Short as Ben, the bioelectronic navigator. Martin Short is, of course, a comedian that has been in quite a few different things. I know currently him and Steve Martin have done some things together recently. And if you've ever seen The Prince of Egypt from DreamWorks, Martin Short and Steve Martin play the 2 Egyptian priests that are there. Not really too many others. We have Roscoe Lee Brownie as Mr. Arrow, and we have Tony Jay as the narrator. If I remember correctly, Tony Jay also voiced Frollo in Hunchback of Notre Dame, I think. In regards to the development of Treasure Planet, in the development of it, it was, Treasure Island in space, and it was actually pitched at the same meeting where when Ron Clements, it was pitched by Ron Clements at the same meeting where John Musker also pitched The Little Mermaid. So that goes back quite a ways there, and to the mid 1980s, in 1985. So it was pitched at the same meeting, but it just took a long time for it to get up and going, unfortunately. In regards to other things, there is no actual official sequel or anything like that, but they did have a sequel in the works. It was announced in 2000, but it was canceled, unfortunately. In 2004, it was announced that they had a sequel that was just titled Treasure Planet 2, and it was scripted, but it was eventually just canceled due to, unfortunately, the film not being as successful as they thought it was going to be, which I love Treasure Planet. I think it was a great movie, and I would have loved it if they did a sequel. The concept art and the script details have been released. The plot of the movie was it was going to focus on Jim, now enrolled at the Royal Interstellar Academy, and would have eventually confronted the main antagonist of the film, Ironbeard, to a reference to like Blackbeard, and Captain Amelia, Dr. Delbert, Silver would have popped back up again. Ben would have popped back up again. I would assume that Jim's mom would have popped back up again. And then some of the other new characters would have been Kate, who would have been Jim's love interest in the movie, and then Admiral Blake, who is Kate's father. I would assume he's also probably like somewhere of like not happy about his daughter being being friends or in love with Jim. And then of course Ironbeard is a protagonist of the film, so we're supposed to show up and just like help with something, help with dealing with Ironbeard. There wasn't anything else released about it, but I would have watched that. That would have been fun. Trivia. Jim has a plushie version of like Stitch in his room, which is adorable. Ben at one point sings Yo Ho, A Pirate's Life for Me in the background. Because a lot of this was also being made, I think, at the same time when they were working on like Pirates of the Caribbean. The letters of the ship RLS Legacy are of course a reference to, Robert Louis Stevenson. Doppler does the whole, the Star Trek, Bones characters, damn it, Jim, I'm not a, I'm a doctor, not a, bricklayer or whatever, it's like, damn it, Jim, I'm an astrophysicist, not a doctor. A few lines were cut from the movie because there were a few lines that were cut from the movie in regards to Doppler and Amelia because it was hinted that Doppler was actually the one that gave birth to their children. But they scrapped it because a male pregnancy thing in the early 2000s from Disney would have been a bit too risque, but I think it would have been funny. They're just, the males look like, the males look like dogs, the females look like cats. And then in like one of the bedtime storybooks, it is revealed the names of their 4 children, Matey, Jib, Tilly, and Sunny. Don't know which ones are which. But so I like that they did that. There's not really too much in regards to like Treasure Island or Treasure Planet mentioned in too much other stuff. I'm out of the time frame where I can like talk about different things that popped up for like in House of Mouse because like the show quit running at a certain time frame, of course, but like in subsequent like online things for House of Mouse, Jim has made a few cameo appearances in it, but it wasn't anything too much. They don't really have like. They didn't bring in like John Silver or anything like that into like Once Upon a Time. They have Blackbeard in Once Upon a Time, but that's not 100% the same thing. They don't really reference anything in Once Upon a Time as far as I'm aware for Treasure Island or Treasure Planet. And unfortunately, even though it would have been a very fun thing to do, they don't have anything in regards to like Treasure Planet in like Kingdom Hearts, which I think would have been quite fun if they did something like that. Because, running around in space already, that would have been really fun. Trying to find treasure, in that way would have been really fun. Like maybe you're on the RLS, I can talk, Legacy, and, traveling with them and like, you have to fight against Scrop, you help Jim, stuff like that. I think would have been kind of fun. If they did that with like Kingdom Hearts or whatever. Don't know if that would have been like a time frame where you run around with Sora, or if that would have been like a time frame where it's like if they had worked that into like the Birth by Sleep stuff with like Ventus and Terra and Aqua. But I think that would have been a fun thing to do. That would have been fun. But that's what we have for Treasure Planet. The next one will be Brother Bear. I am going to do a video where I talk some comparisons between like Treasure Planet and One Piece, just because, well, Treasure Island / Treasure Planet with One Piece, which I think would be kind of fun to do. And you'll be able to tell that there was a bit of a time frame between when I recorded this and when I do that one, because yeah, you'll notice something a bit different. But yeah, so yeah, it'll be Brother Bear, and then for the Disney one, and then I think after that it's either Meet the Robinsons and then Bolt, or Bolt and then Meet the Robinsons. I think it's Meet the Robinsons, because there's 2 Disney movies in there that I've seen one of them like maybe once, and I don't care for the other one. The one that I don't care for it. That's Home on the Range, which I've seen once. I have no intention of ever watching it again. It was horrible. It's about cows. And then the other one was Chicken Little, and I've never seen Chicken Little, and that was just, those were 2 movies that Disney did. I'm just like, why? But yeah, so it'll be Brother Bear, and then either Meet the Robinsons, and then Bolt, or Bolt and then Meet the Robinsons, depending on which ones those, which order those 2 go in. So that's what I have for this video. I thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. And you get rainy, so bye-bye. Now you listen to me, James Hawkins. You got the makings of greatness in you, but you got to take the helm and chart your own course. Stick to it, no matter the squalls. And when the time comes, you get the chance to really test the cut of your sails and show what you're made of. Well, I hope I'm there, catching some of the light coming off you that day.